everyone, and welcome to the debrief on ABC News Live. I'm Kimberly Brooks. Thanks so much for joining us. We're bringing you the latest in the aftermath of the deadly Sri Lanka attacks. Plus, we're taking a closer look at the 2020 candidates after that marathon CNN town hall last night. Plus, we're on the purple carpet of the Avengers premiere. But first, here are your headlines.
There is now one person under arrest in the shooting death of a reporter in Northern Ireland. Lyra McKee was killed covering rioting in Londonderry.
Sacramento Kings head coach Luke Walton is being accused of sexual assault. A female sports reporter claims Walton assaulted her in 2016 in a Los Angeles area hotel. According to a lawsuit she filed, the alleged incident took place while he was an assistant with the Golden State Warriors. It's not known if that case was reported to police. The Kings say they're aware of the report and are gathering more information. Walton's attorney calls the claims baseless.
And it was a frustrating night for Phillies slugger Bryce Harper. After 2 strikeouts against the Mets, Harper was ejected from criticizing the umpire from the dugout. He's the first Phillies player to be tossed from a game in nearly 4 years. The Phillies also lost that game.
We begin with the latest on the deadly attacks in Sri Lanka. As the death toll continues to rise, Sri Lanka's president declared a nationwide emergency and marked today as a national day of mourning. I want to go to James Longman, who's still on the ground in Colombo. James, we're going through all of these numbers and death tolls, but these are real families and real human beings. I just want you to talk about the emotional toll that this is taking on everyone.
Yeah, well said, Kimberly. It has been absolutely devastating for this country. Today, as you say, a national day of mourning, funerals taking place, memorial services. You know, I think the thing that really hits you here is that at both the churches and the hotels, these were family events. These were families being targeted, parents losing children, dying alongside them, some families losing multiple children. And I think for us here covering this, that I think has really hit home. I covered the Nice attacks in 2016, the Bastille Day there, and again, that was a family event, and I can't remember another terrorist attack I've been to where really it's been children that I've been seeing most drastically affected. Of the 300 or plus who've so far died, 45 of them we know now are children. Today, I had an experience I don't think I'm ever going to forget. We made our way to Negombo, just north of where we are here now, and we found a funeral, or a memorial service, I should say, taking place for a family. But they had the mother and her 3 children lying in their shrouds, wearing white linens, wrapped with their faces exposed, dead on these 4 tables. In their hands, they were clasping rosary beads, and they had flowers with them. Their faces were beginning, actually, I should say, to decompose. And families, the community was there, walking past, offering prayers with tears down their faces. The youngest child there was a 7-year-old boy lying dead in front of us. And this is a story which is being repeated time and time again in this country. Yeah, it is devastating for people here, and I don't think that can be overstated. People are beyond words. They've lost a lot here, Kimberly.
Yeah, that description of that kind of gives me chills. I hate to even bring this up, but ISIS has claimed responsibility for these attacks. What do we know about that?
Yeah, so that's in the big news today. There has been a claim of responsibility from ISIS. It's come through one of their news agencies where these claims are often made. Now, we should say that we haven't seen any real proof here on the ground that they've had any material influence on what's been going on, but nevertheless, they have claimed responsibility. They've issued a picture of what is thought to be some of the attackers and called them brothers as they went forth and deployed their suicide vests. But we should say that the police here have issued another alert, and tonight they say that they're looking for a van, 3 cars, 6 motorbikes, all possibly laden with explosives. That is a terrifying thing for the people of Sri Lanka to hear, and it just goes to show this might not yet be over. At a press conference today, a government minister was talking about how there could be 2 local groups involved. The suggestion that ISIS is involved does mesh with this argument that they must have had help from outside of the country. Such was the sophistication of this attack. We're talking about multiple attacks in multiple locations that all went off pretty much without a hitch. Often when we see these sorts of terror attacks, a bomb doesn't manage to detonate, a suicide attacker gets cold feet and runs away. On this occasion, that did not happen. The level of sophistication and the dedication of these individuals was such that people here think they must have had help from outside, and that may have been the so-called Islamic State. But ultimately, people here are just devastated because it's quite clear that there were warnings. There wasn't just a vague warning that there might possibly be an attack. There was specific intelligence about churches being targeted. And the suggestion here in Sri Lanka is that because there is a factionalized government, basically the camp of the president and the camp of the prime minister, that important intelligence was missed. And people here are angry, Kimberly.
Thank you, James. Absolutely terrifying, but we appreciate the updates and hope you continue to be safe. So as he said, ISIS has claimed responsibility for these attacks, and although the Sri Lankan government blamed the bombings on a little-known domestic militant group. So there's a little bit of a discrepancy there, but I want to bring in Martha Raddatz in our D.C. bureau. Martha, just can we dive a little bit deeper into this ISIS claim, and just wondering if this is something that we should be worried about, given that, we said that they were defeated?
Well, I think when President Trump says they are defeated, he is talking about the caliphate. He is really talking about the physical land that ISIS tried to take in Syria and in Iraq. ISIS is not defeated worldwide, and intelligence officials have made that very clear. They certainly have supporters worldwide. They certainly have people who believe in that cause, even though that physical caliphate is all but defeated in Iraq and Syria and in other areas in the Mideast. It could reignite at any minute, and that is obviously a fear as well. But this does have all the hallmarks of an ISIS attack. And I think seeing those pictures, we saw these reports early on that ISIS was claiming responsibility. They usually do it sooner in a case like this. But seeing the pictures, if in fact those are the bombers, they have 7 of them side by side, and another photograph separate from that. And of course, James just said the fear is there may be more bombers out there, but U.S. officials believe that ISIS supported this in some way to help them carry this off, because it was indeed a very sophisticated attack. You had the coordination between all these bombers. You had the backpacks. You had where to go, who to target. And it was also just so horrifically brutal with all those children killed, also a hallmark of ISIS.
Yes, and I want to talk about the FBI joining this investigation.
Yeah, the FBI is involved in the investigation, not only because the Sri Lankans asked for help, but because of those 4 Americans, at least 4 Americans, were killed in this attack. So the FBI would naturally just join in and see what they can add to that. The FBI obviously has a huge ISIS connections, and to help them track those connections, and they will do whatever they can, I'm sure, to try to see what's at the heart of this.
All right, Martha Raddatz in D.C. Bureau, thank you so much for joining us. All right, and it's a big day in the Supreme Court. The justices are deciding if the Trump administration can ask about citizenship on the census, and this is just weeks before the 2020 census questionnaire goes to print. So I want to go to Devin Dwyer, who's actually outside of the Supreme Court. Devin, I just want you to kind of give us an idea of why this is such a big deal.
Yeah, it's a huge deal, Kimberly. Good morning to you. We think of the census, you might think of a boring statistical data set, an exercise in simply just gathering the number of Americans that are in this country. Actually, the census data is extraordinarily important to our politics. It determines how many seats each state gets in Congress, electoral votes by state in the presidential election, and then per capita, as the Congress distributes billions of dollars in federal funds, they take a look at the census data, which is done once every 10 years to decide distribution of that money to states and communities. So a lot riding on the line. Today in the Supreme Court just came out from oral arguments behind me here. They're trying to decide, like you said, whether or not the Trump administration can add a citizenship question to the census this year. The Trump administration says they want to do that for the first time since 1950. And of course, critics, Kimberly, are here, a number of groups protesting right now, particularly immigrant groups, saying that by adding that question, it would actually turn people off from participating in the census, which is really just supposed to be a pretty basic count.
Yeah, so if this was implemented again, I mean, what would this look like? Would it actually impact people in a way that we could see?
Yeah, well, absolutely would impact people for the next decade, depending upon the policy decisions that are made based on those numbers. So you want to be counted no matter who you are. And of course, the Constitution says, just in the first part of the Constitution, believe it or not, that a census should be conducted every 10 years. A count, an enumeration is the word they use. Doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a citizen or not. The Constitution called on that to be done. These groups, though, here right beside me, a bunch of immigrant groups, are the ones protesting most forcefully against this. They're joined by a group of states from New York and others around the country, saying that this would discriminate against them, that the Trump administration actually wanted to add this question to deliberately suppress the count, turn people off from participating, particularly in immigrant communities, big cities where a lot of immigrants reside. And of course, the impact from that would mean that resources, political representation here in Washington would be dispersed elsewhere out of those communities. So a lot on the line here at the court.
Yeah, and Devin, just before we go, I just want you to tell us, when is the decision supposed to come out?
Yeah, so they're hearing arguments today, Kimberly. They're actually hearing this case on an expedited basis because, as you said at the top, the Census Department has to print those questionnaires by the end of June. So they're going to have to get an answer here at the court by the end of June to see whether all Americans living in this country will have to answer about their citizenship. Kim?
All right, Devin, and we can hear those protests behind you. Thank you so much for the updates. All right, and I want to bring in Karen Travers at the White House. We know that this is going on at the Supreme Court, but there's also other things going on in Washington. We know House Democrats are moving forward on the Mueller report investigation. They have now subpoenaed former White House counsel Don McGahn. So, Karen, I want to bring you in so you can tell us more about what they're trying to do and what his relationship was to the president.
Well, Kimberly, Democrats say he's a critical witness as they put together their fact-finding mission on the question of whether the president obstructed justice. Don McGahn is the former White House counsel, and he sat down with Mueller and his team for more than 30 hours answering questions. And we learned in the Mueller report last week that McGahn said that the president repeatedly told him to fire the special counsel. Don McGahn says he refused and at one point was very close to resigning because of this pressure from the president. House Democrats now say that they want to talk to him, they want to get documents from him, and they set up two deadlines, Kimberly. May 7th to get documents from Don McGahn, who, according to the report, had extensive notes and memos on those conversations with the president, and they would also like to see Don McGahn take questions from lawmakers on May 21st. Gerald Nadler, the House Judiciary Committee chairman, says that McGahn is a crucial, critical witness to many of the instances of alleged obstruction of justice in the Mueller report.
Yeah, and we're trying to see if this would potentially lead to any impeachment conversation, but Nancy Pelosi saying to take a cautious approach. So what do we know there?
Certainly, the approach that the speaker seems to be taking is step by step in a fact-finding mission. Pelosi's office has said that she wants to get the fully unredacted Mueller report so lawmakers can take a look at that. They'd also like to get the special counsel, Robert Mueller, up to Capitol Hill to answer questions. Those are the priorities right now for House Democratic leadership. But Kimberly, you're going to start hearing more and more pressure being put on the Democratic leadership now from some 2020 presidential contenders like Elizabeth Warren, Amy Klobuchar, who were saying that that is where the Democrats should go, the direction of the impeachment route. There are certainly progressives in Nancy Pelosi's own caucus who say that this should be started, but pay attention to Nadler. He's the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. That's where this would start. Right now, I think they seem to be saying, let's cool our jets, let's get all of our information, get all of our ducks in a row. We'll see where that takes us, but that doesn't mean the pressure is going to be stopped.
All right, Karen Travers at the White House, thank you so much. And speaking of impeachment, did you watch the 5-hour CNN marathon town hall last night? We had all of the Democrats weighing in on their different opinions on these issues. So our Armando Garcia was in the room. He's now on the road, but he's going to give us a look.
Hey, Kimberly, I am in New Hampshire on Senator Kamala Harris's campaign trail. And let me tell you, the talk of the town here are those 5 CNN town halls that we had last night. I'm going to repeat that to you one more time. It was 5 hour-long, back-to-back CNN town halls. It was a very long night for all of us here on the political beat, but the elephant in the room that kind of kept on rearing its head throughout the town halls was named Robert Mueller. Every single candidate was asked whether or not they thought that Trump should be impeached after reading that Mueller report that we all poured over last week. And they all had different responses. Now, for example, Senator Elizabeth Warren kind of led the way with the strongest endorsement of the impeachment process, while others like Amy Klobuchar stopped short of calling for the impeachment process. But she did say, however, that she believed that Congress should do a thorough investigation into this matter. Senator Bernie Sanders, on the other hand, he said that he feared that the impeachment process would actually be an advantage for Trump because it would distract Congress from addressing other issues important to Americans. I do want to highlight one other issue. It's something that I saw come up a lot on my Twitter feed last night and well into this morning, and that is Senator Bernie Sanders' comments on people who are in prison and whether or not they should be able to vote. He said that no matter what you did, if you're in prison, he believes that you should have the right to vote. He was asked specifically about people like the Boston bomber and whether or not he should be able to vote, and he said even, quote, terrible people should be able to vote. Senator Harris dodged this question. She wouldn't say whether she agreed with Sanders, but she said that she was willing to have the conversation. Mayor Buttigieg, on the other hand, outright said no. He completely disagreed with Bernie Sanders, saying you lose certain rights, you lose your freedom. Now, we are about 2 months away from the first presidential debate. This is going to be the first time that this very crowded Democratic field is going to be able to face off with one another. But for now, they're out here in full force. They're out in New Hampshire, they're out in Iowa, they are out in other early voting states here to get those voters and to prove to the American people why they should be the next president of the United States.
All right, Armando, thank you so much. And of the candidates who spoke last night, Senator Elizabeth Warren was the most outspoken one. She also rolled out her proposal to forgive up to $50,000 worth of student debt for households making up to $100,000. So I want to go to Rick Klein to break this all down. Rick, can you explain more about this plan? Because this is on everyone's mind, I think.
Yeah, this goes beyond free public education at 2- and 4-year schools at the college level, as Elizabeth Warren has outlined. This would actually cancel existing loan debt for millions of people, up to $50,000 for people making $100,000 or less, and it phases out over a sliding scale since then. The price tag on this is pretty eye-popping, $1.25 trillion over 10 years. But the Warren campaign says the proposal would be to put a 2% tax on the ultra-rich, the wealthiest of the wealthy. They say they could do this and actually have quite a surplus. So I think you'd qualify this as a policy long shot, but it is a proposal that has other Democrats reacting, and it would certainly drive the policy debate, as Senator Warren has been doing.
Yeah, you just mentioned those 2- and 4-year degrees. Are you saying that this plan also includes students that went to, like, say, vocational or trade schools as well?
That's right. In fact, any kind of college debt would be eligible for the debt cancellation. And we've seen some Republicans already respond and say, well, how unfair this would be for people that have struggled under the mountains of debt. But I think for most people that have dealt with college debt, they take it at any time. And I think that's been the reaction among the fellow Democrats. The question really comes down to feasibility and cost. The incentive structure is built in, but is this where you want to see a massive infusion of federal resources to the tune of more than $1 trillion?
Yeah, and so you mentioned the policy rollout. Do you think that we're going to see other candidates in the future at these debates having something viable as well?
Elizabeth Warren, I think, right now is the undisputed leader of the policy primary. She has put out bold proposals in a whole range of different areas, and I think there's already shirts and hats going around saying, I've got a plan for that if you're Elizabeth Warren. And I think it's going to force more specificity on her opponents. I think she came across last night on CNN as forceful, as concise, as deliberate. She had ideas, and she wants to provide them. And I think it is going to drive a good portion of the Democratic debate.
And obviously, this is a huge issue for millennial voters. Do you think this will sway them in her direction?
I don't know that this is the deal maker, but you can see by the reception that she had last night from the college-age crowd at St. Anselm in New Hampshire that this has a lot of traction. It has a lot of relevance, and I think looking at a demographic that's going to have an outsized impact in this Democratic primary field, any way you can get millennials' ears to perk up a little bit, I think is an idea that's at least worth discussing.
All right, Rick, thank you so much. Always breaking it down for us. We appreciate it. All right, guys, on to, unfortunately, another sad story. We have the latest in that mysterious murder of 2 8th graders in Delphi, Indiana in 2017. Now, the Indiana State Police Superintendent said yesterday that the unknown suspect could be hiding in plain sight. So I want to go to Alex Perez, who's there with more. Alex?
Hey, Kimberly, you know, this is the first new piece of evidence we've gotten in this case, really since it all started back in 2017. And authorities are hoping this new information will help them track down the killer. Now, let's take you back a little bit, remind everybody what happened. It was back in February of 2017 when 13-year-old Abby Williams and 14-year-old Libby German were hiking on a trail in Delphi, Indiana, when they disappeared. A day later, authorities recovered their bodies not far from that trail. Both had been murdered. Now, investigators have released new video, a short video clip that they say shows the killer, the man who murdered these 2 teenage girls. Investigators are hoping people will notice his mannerisms, the way he is walking, and anything else that might help them recognize who he is. Now, also, authorities released a short audio clip from Libby's phone. Both that video and this audio clip came from Libby's phone. Authorities say this is the killer's voice. It's chilling, and he is directing the girls from that trail short time before they were killed. Let's take a listen to that audio clip. Authorities say that what you heard right there is the killer's voice. Now, investigators also released a new sketch. This sketch, if you compare it to the one that had been previously released, is dramatically different. In this sketch, the killer, the man police are looking for, looks much younger. Authorities say they are now working off of this sketch and trying to circulate it, trying to get this information out there. They say they believe the killer appears to be much younger than he actually is. Authorities say they've investigated thousands of tips since this all started more than 2 years ago, and they're hoping that this new information will be what they need to crack this case. They also say, Kimberly, that they firmly believe the killer lived or continues to live in the Delphi area. Kimberly?
Thank you, Alex. Pretty terrifying. So we're going to make our way across the pond to a little bit of lighter news where the president and first lady will visit the Queen in June. The official announcement was made today that Trump accepted Her Majesty's invite, making this his second time. The first was in July of 2018. So I want to go to Lama Hassan in London. Lama, just curious, what is this visit about? Why was he invited a second time?
Hi, Kimberly. Yeah, this is a very good question. So as you rightly said, the President and the First Lady will be on an official visit, making their way here to the UK from June 3rd until the 5th of June. Now, this means it's an official visit. So this means that they are guests of the Queen. Now, the President will also be marking the 75th D-Day anniversary, as well as meeting the Prime Minister Theresa May at Downing Street. Now, why now? Well, as we know, the Prime Minister did promise the President a state visit back in 2016 after he was elected, but there was no date set. Well, now we know that the date has been set. And as you rightly said, the President has already been here. You'll recall he made his way here in July 2018, famously meeting the Queen. We remember those images along with the First Lady, but that was classed as a working visit, not a state visit. So what does this mean? Well, an official state visit, think all the pomp and circumstance, all the trappings that come with it. Well, President Trump will be treated to that, as well as a banquet hosted by the Queen, where she will also invite 150 guests in his honor. Kimberly.
All right. So in other royal news, it's Prince Louis's first birthday. These beautiful, cute pictures are going around. Can you tell us about those photos?
Yeah, I'm so glad we're doing this Royal Roundup. Brilliant pictures, 3 in total, that were released by Kensington Palace. As we know that the Duchess of Cambridge, his mum, took those photos to celebrate Prince Louis turning 1 today. Now, we've come accustomed to the Duchess of Cambridge releasing pictures in an informal setting of all of her children. But these particular photos are very, very sweet. We know that she took them earlier this month in their country home in Norfolk. We see him smiling, showing off his 2 bottom teeth, and if you look closely you can see bits of grass on his jumper. So all in all, a good day for Prince Louis.
It's adorable, and if she took those herself, it looks like she was on portrait mode on her iPhone. Anyway, Lama, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Sure.
All right, guys, we're moving from British royalty to Hollywood. Avengers Endgame premiered last night on the purple carpet, and the highly anticipated film is expected to break box office records. So our Maggie Rulli was there and talked to some of the superstars. Check it out.
Hey, Kimberly, we're here at the Avengers premiere, the world premiere of what's being called the most anticipated film of all time. You see the purple carpet behind me. Pretty much all of the Avengers were walking down this just moments ago. We talked to the OG Avengers. We talked to some of the new Avengers, the Avengers that it's rumored could be taking over the franchise. We saw a lot of this girl, Captain Marvel. Many people are saying she's sort of the future, potentially, of the franchise. She's gonna be introduced more in Endgame. Everyone is so pumped for this. So pumped, in fact, that unlike other movie premieres that are normally done, you know, at a movie theater, look at this place. We had to come to the LA Convention Center. This is the 22nd movie in this franchise. You heard me right, that's 22 movies there have been, 11 franchises in total. All of these Avengers, we have Captain America, ever heard of him? A lot of the Avengers were saying the same thing, that this has, been their life for more than 10 years, that they've really become a family together. And so being here tonight at Endgame, we saw that. We saw a bunch of them coming up together, giving each other hugs, patting each other on the back. Actually, Captain America, I saw kind of got a little frisky with the Hulk as we were interviewing him. So they really are close. They really are friends. Everyone is so pumped for Endgame. We've mentioned the hype before, people waiting outside of this premiere. But it's not only here at this premiere, it's across the country, around the world. Experts are anticipating that this movie could bring in like $900 million on opening day. That's almost $1 billion if you do the math with me. I mean, tickets sold out instantly practically. They crashed websites, crashed apps. A lot of these tickets now are going on sale for thousands of dollars on StubHub. A lot of movie theaters even had to come up with ridiculous times like 4 a.m. and midnight to try to accommodate extra screenings. That's how badly everyone wanted to get in to see this movie. And this film has been shrouded in so much secrecy. We've heard time and time again, the directors came out with a letter saying, do not spoil Endgame's secret. They are making sure that no one spills the beans. But we did hear a couple things tonight. We heard that you're going to be surprised. You're going to be surprised multiple times. So you're welcome. We broke some news here on ABC News Live. Avengers comes out this week, April 26th, and a lot of people we spoke to said you don't have to watch necessarily all 22 movies, although they recommend it because they're fantastic. But if you don't have time, the ones you definitely should watch, at least watch Avengers Infinity War. That's the one that came out right before this, so that's some homework for everyone. If you can throw in Captain America Civil War as well, that's really important. And why not just Guardians of the Galaxy, because that's a super fun movie as well, and one of my favorites. All right, so you have your homework. Do with it what you will, but I highly recommend studying up because you're going to enjoy this movie if you do. And heck, everyone's going to be talking about it, so you want to be in on the gossip. Hopefully people keep this secret. Watch out for spoilers. I don't know the answer. We don't get to see it tonight, but if I do, I'll text you later, girl. All right, thanks, Kimberly.
Thanks, Maggie. I'm so excited. You really hyped that up, so I'm ready. Guys, if you're around, continue to stick around for the briefing room at 3:30 p.m., and then you can check out World News Prime at 8 p.m. And if you want to be updated on all of these headlines, you can go to abcnews.com or download the app. I'm Kimberly Brooks, and I'll see you tomorrow.